So I think from, at least from the perspective I was sharing in our caucus too, is that I'm not necessarily interested in it being in the master agreement so much as like this is something that we need to do for our teachers and coaches to protect ourselves and to protect the school. So I don't care if it's in the master agreement in that respect, but looking into something that does work. I mean, like I said, other schools use different things that make it so that they're not putting their personal information as part of it. And like I said, it's not necessarily so that I can reach out and talk to my students at any time. It's more so that when they have a question, they can have access immediately. Then I can make a decision. Am I going to respond to that? But at least if I feel like it's necessary to respond to it, that I've got a way of doing it in the media that makes the most sense to them to be able to use. And I think, like I said, especially for coaching, you know, at State this year we were in different hotels, and so just, you know, and ultimately I had Jane saying, hey, Ron doesn't use his cell phone for texting and stuff, so if you need to get a hold of Jagger and Sawyer, you're going to have to, you know, get a hold of Jagger on his phone. And that's a precarious position to be in, so. Okay,
I just texted Dan to find us something, please.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Teacher classroom budgets. Each classroom teacher provided $500 annual budget for use in the classroom, while KHS science teacher will get $1,500 annual budget, and the PH teacher will have $11,500 annual budget, and it's spelled out in this. The annual budget part broken down.
For the shop.
For the shop.
Yeah, that is, after the first big tool list, if you go there, it's broken out into recurring and annual costs. So there's one that says Ag Shop annual costs. So that's an estimation of material supplies, which in the current economy, you imagine $8 2x4 makes it kind of difficult to do things. And then down there's a reoccurring annual cost for case courses. So those are the lab-based science courses that I'm going to start teaching this fall. They have a lot of technology, they have a lot of lab materials. One of the beautiful things is Eric has done a wonderful job of providing a lot of lab supplies, but there are some of the courses that use a lot of consumables, like the animal science, which students are rather excited about. There's a lot of specimens that are a one-time use specimen that add up quickly. Things that wouldn't normally come through a regular science lab, like reproductive tracts and other things like that. So there are consumables to those. And if you guys need a breakdown of what those are, I can get a purchase list that shows what everything down to the Q-tip is.
So are you saying you want 11.5 on top of your CTE funding that you get?
The CTE funding is kind of a misnomer in that account.
But you get about 10 to 11,000 for CTE.
Right, but that also includes a portion of my salary.
Right.
So that, in essence,
so you're asking for 11.5 on top of the CTE?
No, it needs to be for shop and classroom supplies. That's what I'm looking at to be able to run that effectively. Now there's always an opportunity to have a side racket, but one of the other things in here is
Kim, are you asking, is it separate from that?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
No,
I mean, because it does get CTE funding. It does include a portion of his salary. It's just what do you call those days? The extended days.
Contract.
So those come out of CTE, plus all the supplies he buys comes out of CTE. So that's what I'm asking, is he wanting to know additional 11.5 on top of the 10 or 11 he's getting?
As far as what I'm asking for is minus my salary, the consumables I'm looking at to run those courses as written is gonna be about 11.5. So however that balances out, and I went into it understanding that there was going to be there was that big budget. I had no idea part of my salary came out of it. So I was spending as if I had that full amount and was preparing to not only purchase supplies, but also do equipment repair and replacement. If I took you out to the shop and showed you my hammers, you'd kind of get the idea of the state of the shop. I have a claw hammer with no head. I have a claw hammer with no claws. I have framing hammers that are milled hammers that have been pounded smooth because they've been used for metalworking. I have screwdrivers dating back to the 50s. I have a surface planer, the bushings are busted. When I came, the bandsaw belt was busted. I've got a welder that you gotta treat like the doggone jukebox from Happy Days. You have to kick it or hit it in the right spot to turn it off.
Okay, I was just asking about this.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, it's underfunded. And it's expensive. You know, a literature class or a history class is not expensive. Running a shop is very expensive. So, however it's done, we need to allot a dedicated amount of funding that would fit that. You know, take my salary not into account in that, and whatever is left over, that's what it's going to take, and that's going to be a day-to-day, year-to-year. It's going to be about.
So this
there.
would be, like, let's say ostensibly after your salary is taken out, how much is left in CTE is.
Yeah.
So I'd have to look.
So like,
I don't have that
let's say,
off the top of my head.
but let's say it was 5,000,
Right.
just for the sake of like the example. So are you asking for an additional 11.5 or are you asking for additional 6.5?
6.5.
Gotcha. I think that's what Tim's question.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain. It's just, as the shop gets up and running and things are replaced, repaired, get functioning, there's always an opportunity for a side hustle. It's just the shop's not prepared for that right now. Again, I ran the shop this year as if I had that full budget, not realizing that it was nowhere near that. And most of the shops that I've worked with, you know, I've had to bootstrap, which requires a lot of my time. And I'll say it this other way. If I need to repair or replace equipment, basically I have to look for grants. A lot of what I did in my last school was community oriented, rather it was digital fundraising with digital media, or whether it was networking. But that's also a significant portion of my time. Working on those grant writing, Eric will tell you, is a lot of your own time. You know, I've got a lot of them available, but I have to have, you know, some of them are going to take a day or two of my time to write them. So, I don't know. I'm just telling you guys how it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I understand it. It's ridiculous what stuff costs these days. And it's hard to budget on that. And I don't have a problem with trying to get that. But like, we need to figure out how much you're coming out of your CT budget now is your salary, how much you got left.
Right, and that's a question mark for me.
And
I don't know.
And I don't know, and I don't know if this is, you know, and I think that, you know, particularly where we didn't have a meeting prior to coming into this, which probably would have taken care of a lot of things, but I think that, I don't know if it's a master agreement sort of line, or if this is something that is just like, let's agree to this happening. on a fairly annual basis.
Like the $1,500 that I get, Steve's been really good about making sure I get it every
You
year.
get it now.
Well, and I can say that
Yeah.
I've never asked for
I've
something
never asked
and
it.
not gotten it
Yeah.
unless it's silly.
It'd be nice to, at the end of the day, we don't necessarily have to have this master agreement, but it'd be nice for the district to commit verbally to a number.
Yeah.
But I understand the fact that we can't do it today, and that we're running out of time. So that might be something.
Yeah.
The purpose of this part here, 4.7, was to have the discussion.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same, and the same thing would go with like something like 4.8 with classroom furniture. Like, it's more conducive in my classroom to have tables than it is to have the desk and chair combos that we
Yeah, I
have.
can't
Same
do
thing with
desks.
their, like, those are conversations that maybe aren't master agreement sort of conversations, but like, what can we do to facilitate the type of teaching that works well in a particular classroom? So I don't know, like I said, I think that where we've had those conversations before, it worked nicely.
Go ahead. I know you want to comment.
No, I'm just saying 4.7, it doesn't matter to me. Either way, I don't care.
Or 4.4.
Well, I'm talking
There's two
about
4.7.
Oh, the
Budget.
first-
Why did I say
Budget.
G?
No.
There's two of them.
The other 4.7.
The other 4.7, the second one.
No, I
You're supposed to be a
don't,
science and math person.
Yeah,
That
I
part-
also do this like at 2 o'clock in the morning, so.
that part I don't care. Because like we already do those first couple, the shop, I mean, honestly, like this comes down to, and I'm not gonna get on the soapbox here, maybe a little bit. Like, part of like modernizing or making sure your novels are updated or whatever, your equipment,
Yeah.
is just how much ambition the teacher has.
Yeah.
And I can't like take on those jobs.
Yeah.
So like, I'm all for it. Like, I know that we need to modernize the shop.
Yeah.
I get it. And I've known that for years, but it's just one of those things that I'm not going to take on.
Yeah.
Well, you
Like,
don't
so-
have that knowledge
You
base,
don't have
right?
it,
I mean,
right.
like, that's, like,
Yes.
I mean, not to be insulting, like, I don't have the knowledge base to.
Well, no,
You're
it's
insulted
not-
and you're right.
Like when he came, I've always wanted to see the shop,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
shop be upgraded to more of a machinist type
So
thing.
anyway.
But I don't, and I want to help with that, but I don't know
Yeah,
jack
so
about it.
wherever you guys are on that, as far as leaving it in, taking it out,
I don't see it, it needs to be, it doesn't need to be in the master.
I would
Agreement.
agree with that, but I would like to see us verbally have a number.
No, I agree. We need to,
But we can't do that.
11.5, there you go, there's a number. We'll do that.
Okay.
So we're on a time thing here, what
5 till
time?
8.
Till 8?
5 till 8.
Class, so we'll strike that, the first 4.7. Everybody good with that?
yep.
Okay. Class size, dual limitation space, class size will be capped at max 20 students per class unless teacher and admin agree on the increase. I have only so many desks in my room and I've got one class with too many. Not enough seat, well, I have him, he's sitting at the end of the table.
Yeah, we know that from sure.
So
Yeah,
what
we're
are you
able-
actually proposing?
Yeah.
Because we can't leave them out in the hallway.
I know that, but we
Tell them
also
not to come
have,
every day.
we also have a classroom with the teacher who's certified in everything, and there's potential space to do better scheduling. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
So do you need an extra classroom that you could
I think
use to
he's saying
certify?
that personnel needs to, that we need either extra personnel or to
Are
utilize
you saying
personnel.
hire more teachers? Is that what you're saying?
No, not necessarily. I'm saying use teachers more and scheduling more effectively to get down to 20.
Well, for example, next year our physical science class is going to be a big one. We only
Yeah.
have one person endorsed in science.
Yeah.
You got 2 people endorsed in science.
Are you endorsed in science? Is that what we're talking about?
No,
Who's the
he's
other
not
person?
endorsed in science.
Okay. Anyway, okay. There. So So you're not proposing more teachers?
No, not necessarily. It's not, that's not my job. That's your job.
Well, I know, but there's a lot of things in here that aren't necessarily your job that you put in here.
Yeah,
So there we go.
yeah. The class size is actually a common thing in master agreements.
Yeah, I know, but it's not necessarily, it's more like overall caseload because of the amount of grading and work that goes into it.
Yeah.
Well, and
So not a per class thing.
Because we were able to, like with that big sophomore class, divide it into 2 classes, which is
Right.
kind of the ideal. Like I can see like this, the freshman class is the same, the current freshman class and the current 8th grade class, particularly once we get into those junior and senior English classes. Like there's like those are going to have to be divided to make it, or I'm just not going to teach paper writing. You know, I mean, like there's the options are bad if we don't have this.
Well,
classes
those juniors
divided.
are split. I mean, sometimes they split.
And like
Right.
for you,
So-
Yeah.
having a bunch of kids in a shop where they can lose appendages, that's bad.
I haven't checked here in Idaho, but in Oregon, shop classes were capped at 16 because after 16 you had to have an assistant, basically as eyes. And conversely, also, if you put too many kids in the shop, everybody stands in line waiting to do stuff. Yeah, but you know, and then you can also look at the other extreme for me is, you know, some of my classes have been tiny, but spreading the load out better would be helpful.
Okay. I can't agree to that. I don't know how we would do that in some cases, if that's actually what you're asking for. So, in my eyes, how I see that is we would have to hire additional teachers in a couple situations.
Yeah,
So obviously, like, I can't advocate for that,
yeah.
because I don't think that's possible. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think that,
Yes.
Practical.
yeah.
Practical.
Yes. Now, if we were talking about overall caseloads because of like, say, grading and things like that, I think that's a different conversation, but 20 per class, I don't think that's reasonable.
Okay.
And there are some electives that we have to cap because of things, and so those people, what they do is they go and have a conversation with the scheduler and they work through that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to say that
Yeah.
Mr. Eggers is really good about, like, you know, for example, English 101. You know, that one realistically has to have a cap because of the, I mean, even on campus it has a cap to the size for an English 101 class. And so we just talk about it.
Sometimes equipment issues cause caps too.
Yeah.
So like what you have.
Right, I mean, for me it was, they're the ones speaking from experience. For me it was, I got what I got. You know, what I walked into is what we had.
Yeah.
You know, there are a few other things. I've talked to Eric a little bit about it when I bring in these other science classes that I mentioned under the case courses. In Oregon, all of those count as a science credit. And that's something that I need to look in with Eggers, is to see which one of those we can also pass on as a science credit here. But that, I'm still learning.
Here's where I am on these things for the sake of time. You want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Teacher class budgets, I'm fine with those things. Class size, I don't like that in here, although I think we just need to talk about some classes. Classroom furniture, I don't like. Cameras in the shop, those conversations have already been happening.
Okay.
So Dan he's been aware of that for a while, and that's hopefully happening. And the modernization of the KHS shop, that actually came up at the board meeting, so you know about that, but I can let the board talk about that. That's where I am on those things.
Okay, classroom furniture, desks, like I cannot, if we use desks, it's not, I can't put a soldering iron on the desk because it's going to slide into the kid's lap. That's
Yeah.
bad.
That's fine, you don't have those.
Yeah, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
we don't get them in that classroom. I mean,
I'm not gonna sneak them in the night.
What's the problem with other classrooms having desks, I guess is my question.
My overall problem
Yeah.
with tables and desks, when I got here, it was a hodgepodge mess of furniture in classrooms. And every time class sizes changed from year to year, we weren't able to just rearrange. It was a total nightmare. And we had to, like, it was just bizarre, and it was a mess. So in most cases, desks are the best option. But we do have tables. I know,
Yeah.
I understand that.
And the reason why I'm looking at, because they're not very practical for me. I mean, because I have utilized a lot of the stuff that we did with Peak, and like the Peak stuff requires, you know, things like this, where we can sit at a desk and at a table and collaborate and do things. We were talking about some of those, and I'm just trying to think of, like, because I had desks, or I had tables in my room, and I loved it, and it made the class really dynamic. And now, in order to do a lot of stuff, I have to come to the library, which is not a problem for me, except for when there's 6 other kids in here for, you know, IDLA, or because they're in here for another class. Or
Yeah, that's the backstory of it.
yeah.
I'm not totally opposed to tables, except for when it creates issues every year. For the most part, most classrooms are desks, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
I don't like facility type things
Yeah.
being in here.
In a master agreement.
Yeah, that's why I don't like the camera thing, even though we're gonna do it anyway. I don't like the desks, all that stuff.
The camera thing is, I mean, it's really good that you guys are getting cameras out there, but protect math. You don't want to have, and this is from IEA, they said if you have cameras in the shop, you do not want any footage, you want something in the master agreement that says the footage cannot be used for evaluations.
Okay. So
So we can.
how about just take out all of the shop things in general?
Just say cameras
and just
at
put
PHS.
cameras will not be used in teacher evaluations.
Okay.
But I think that's already in policy anyway.
That policy can be changed.
Cemented in there.
Yeah, doesn't work that way.
You guys are okay with that? Yeah.
Okay, so we're out of time, I think, aren't we? So what do you guys, when do you guys want to meet next?
Tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning, I can do tomorrow morning.
My poor kids.
They're young.
You want the same time, 45?
Yeah.
Does that work?
It's my favorite time.
And you know what? My tabletop is sticky.
Those kids are clean.
It's sticky, I know it's food. If it's in the shop, who knows what it is?
Yeah, I just go right up here and put it in, so.